Okay, we're also live on Facebook now. So just let's give it a few more seconds for participants to join. Okay, so as people are slowly joining us for the conversation, let me greet you all for tonight's discussion about political mobilization of women and what we can learn from the history of Kenya. I'm very much looking forward to it because, I mean, when I prepared for coming to Kenya and working in Kenya, obviously I also dwelled into the history of Kenya, and well, you know, the people you learn about, Jomo Kenyatta, Tom Mboya, Oginga Odinga, it's all the men in Kenyan history. And so also for me, it's going to be very interesting to hear which role women played in history. So I think the only name that is known worldwide is Wangari Maathai, and I'm hoping I learned some more important figures of female Kenyan history. I mean, we probably have pretty much the same issue in Germany. History, especially political history, is mostly about men and their achievements. There's one note in contemporary German history. After World War II, we have the so-called Trümmerfrauen, which means roughly something like women of ruins, because after the World War II, when large part of the male population was killed in combat or in prison, it was up to the women to rebuild society in the late 40s and then early 50s, and so we still honor the Trümmerfrauen in Germany to some extent. Obviously, the political system was still very much dominated by men, but the hands-on rebuilding of Germany, of the society, was largely up to the women, and we often forget that note in our history lessons as well. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to the discussion with some experts, I hope, and I think, on women and what they achieved in Kenya. And with that, I'm giving the word to Kingwa, and I look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Christoph, and welcome the participants that are here with us today. So we are here on Zoom, but also on Facebook, which is where we're broadcasting from. So the topic that comes in today is something that is quite timely because of two particular things. So first of all, there had been set out, the United Green Movement had set out to hold a march on Wednesday, on the 23rd of September, and this was about the 2/3 gender rule. But something that has happened is that the CJ himself has already actually written to the president to dissolve parliament. But it was in that context of the march that we're looking about political mobilization in Kenya. How has it been? What can we learn from? And the second thing is an issue that came out, has been in the public eye the last about 2 weeks, with particular significance I think it was over the weekend. So there was a big grievance that a lot of people had that a lot of women politicians particularly were coming out in support, like to defend the president's mother. And so the question that, because of some things that had been said about her, and that brought a lot of uproar, the question of why is this the only time that our leaders, women leaders, are coming out and mobilizing really about a women's issue. And then just like barely a week after, or a few days after, we saw a very grievous, a very heinous picture of a woman being forced to give birth outside on the road, like literally on the road outside Pumwani Hospital. Apparently she had been, they had not let her in. And so then that brought in the whole other question of why is it that noise is made and the women's agenda seems to be only when it's related to political figures and elite figures, but when a woman like a Wanjiku, a woman who has no, in quotes, political carpet or political worth, why is it that we're not seeing the kind of noise being made about that? And so this conversation really gives us the opportunity to question questions of women's space, women's value in the political field, in the political market. The question of at what point, how do we move away from women just being like furniture, and women actually becoming center stage, becoming the main thing, rather than women being sort of trotted out as, yes, we are mobilizing about women, or even the way women are brought in during election time just to mobilize around the vote. But then when it comes to women's issues, it actually is just a continual thing. We are continually singing about gender-based violence. We are continually singing about the whole issue of sanitary towels not being accessible. We are continually singing about mothers and the kind of lives they live. So that was really the wide context to this discussion. But before I go forward, Christoph is going to play just an introductory video to this to set the stage. And then we'll introduce our very, very brilliant panel that we have today, and then we can then get straight into the discussion.
In Kenya, women are the more organized gender, and almost every woman will belong to at least one chama or church group, if not several. Because of this, they are the most easy to mobilize for political activities and will be seen singing and dancing for politicians during rallies and other self-promoting ceremonies organized by men. Across the world, women have always been the face of change and are the loudest voices in popular movements. Their participation and effect is unquestionable, but they are quickly hidden away when these movements succeed and power is being shared. The failure of women's mobilization to benefit them is common knowledge. What is more curious is that when it comes to mobilizing for their own causes, some things just go terribly wrong. Mobilization is simply the action of organizing and encouraging a group of people to take collective action in pursuit of a particular object. To go just a bit deeper, the analytical concept of mobilization activities consists of three processes: the process of interest formation, or the cognitive dimension, the process of community building, or the affective dimension, and the process of employing means of action, which is the instrumental dimension. The political mobilization of women seeks to bring about a difference with the main goal of building a more inclusive polity and citizenship. There has been quite a bit of political mobilization of women in the past. The first women's rights convention was the Seneca Falls Convention, which, as the name suggests, was held in 1848 in Seneca Falls, New York. This launched the women's suffrage movement, which, after 7 decades, ensured American women the right to vote. In 1995, the famous, and for men infamous, Beijing Conference was held in China, officially known as the Fourth World Conference on Women. This meeting brought together representatives from civil society and governments around the globe and approved a platform for action to serve as a blueprint for efforts to enable women to participate fully as citizens in societies everywhere. How do we measure the success of women's political mobilization? In the general world, the most successful political mobilization has so far been the Tunisian Revolution, also known as the Jasmine Revolution. This was the most successful of the Arab Spring, and it was an intensive 28-day campaign of civil resistance that toppled their longtime president and sparked other revolutions across the Arab world. In the political world, Bernie Sanders' 2016 bid was an excellent example of a campaign that mobilized the grassroots and built a strong community from outside the political establishment. In the world of women, the Beijing Conference has been the most successful thus far. In the world of women in politics, the 23rd November 2005 declaration of Ellen Johnson Sirleaf as the winner of the Liberian election and the first woman to be elected as president of an African country was a moment of pride that was shared by women across the continent. Has enough been done? Has political mobilization of women in Kenya been successful? Join the discussion.
Yes, thanks. Thanks, Christopher. So that really sets the stage for what we're going to be talking about today. We've at least gotten a background from other parts of the world of what has been happening. Here locally, we've had examples, very good examples of women mobilizing from Mekatilili Wamenza to Nyanjiro outside on Harithuku Road, to one of our greatest icons, Wangari Maathai with the Green Belt movement, which was actually cool. The way I look at it is the most successful incident of women's mobilizing that we've had locally. But we'll also hear from our panelists about what they think have been some of the successful incidents that we've seen in terms of women's mobilization. So for now, I will just very quickly like to introduce them. First of all, to say that they are amazing, like very vibrant, fiery women, people who are trailblazers in the different fields that they are operating in. And we have, I'll start with Bina Maseno. And Bina Maseno, I'm sure a lot of us know her. She's the founder and executive director of Badili Africa. And she has been doing some very innovative things using in terms of trying to mobilize women, especially a constituency of women that has continually been left out of politics and has been made to feel like interlopers, and that's the young women. So Bina Maseno is the founder and director of Badili Africa. The challenges of her experience running for political office as a 23-year-old woman inspired the forming of the organization. As a mentor, speaker, and moderator, she's been invited to lead global discussions across initiatives like the Obama Africa Leaders Program in South Africa, the 2017 Bill and Melinda Gates Goalkeepers event in New York, and the 2015 High-Level National Dialogue by the African Union, and recently by the UNFPA in Gambia on governance and accountability. Badili Africa uses makeup activism as a political tool to engage young women in a space that sums up politics as dirty business. It merges beauty with civic dialogues, for political awareness and involvement with governance processes in Africa. Bina continues to use her voice to encourage and champion women's participation in African politics, as well as actively participate in the broader discourse of governance as active citizens. So Karibu Sana Bina, we are very, very honored to have you with us. And then we have Sitawa Namwale. A lot of us, in her other life, she's known as Betty Wamalwa, and she is a Nairobi-based development consultant and artist who works with international organizations on a range of developmental issues. She holds a BSc in Botany and Zoology from the University of Nairobi and an MA in Environmental Studies from Clark University, Massachusetts. She has a prominent gender portfolio and is passionate about promoting the rights of women. And those of us who've been following her work, Betty really, Sitawa, sorry, I told her that we were actually going to have a ceremony to put away her former name. But really, Sitawa has been very good at bringing together the history of women's organizing, bringing the collective voice of women, and she's been doing that through her different performances, her different poetry performances over the years, and how she really brings out the issue of power and gender and the interplay of it all in a very extremely profound way. And even the discussions that we've been having and what she says about the centering of women, how they were forgotten in history, the issue of mobilization as more of a mobilization of consciousness, even before we go out to the ground to start to bring in people into the platform of political parties. So she has a lot of brilliant things to say. And then we are joined by Professor Winnie Mitchulla. She, of course, I know a lot of us know her, has been a champion really with her work, with using academia to try to push forward the women's agenda, and she is the former director of the Institute of Development Studies of the University of Nairobi, and she's a research professor of development studies. She has a BA and an MA in government from the University of Nairobi and a PhD from the University of York. Her background is in political science and public administration, specializing on local governance, in particular policies and regulations relating to provision and management of urban services. She's currently the lead investigator for Kenya and co-partner director for the Eastern African region of the Afrobarometer Network, and chair of the Kenya UNESCO Secretariat Committee on Social and Human Sciences, and member of several boards and technical committees. Previously, she was a member of the Kenya Government Task Force on Devolved Governments, chair of UN Habitat Advisory Board on Global Research Network on Human Settlements, and a member of the Kenya Gender Commission, alongside so many other international programs. So very, very happy to have you here with us, Professor Mitchulla. And then we are joined also by Beatrice Kamau. Beatrice Kamau is very well known in the human rights sector, really being a voice for the dispossessed, being a voice for women, being a voice for humanity. And she is known very much for, especially the role that she played with the Released Political Prisoners organization from as far back as the 1990s. And she was also part of the, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you were part of the women that were fighting for political prisoners release at Freedom Corner. But just to say briefly about Beatrice, that she's a strong believer. She says that she describes herself as a strong believer of a world that upholds justice and equality, where people can coexist, knowing that their fundamental human rights and freedoms are respected and guaranteed. Her vast experience is drawn from the work involved in various organizations. She's been in the human rights field in Kenya for 25 years, where she has been involved in founding many institutions such as Release Political Prisoners, People Against Torture, Social Reform Center, among others. So we are very, she coordinated the K-Hurinet campaigns to advocate for the rights of Kenyans in areas of torture, engendering legislation, the new constitution, and advocating for establishment of KNCHR, TJRC, and Gender Commission for more than 4 years. So very welcome, Beatrice. I see that she might have dropped out from the discussion, but I guess she will be joining us. So to begin with, I'll just ask Professor Mitchulla to just begin by just to jump into the discussion, and especially the idea of women as tokens, women, the tokenism that I mentioned when we spoke over the phone, Professor Mitchulla, whereby when I say that we have to move away from, that there's a need really to move away from women being seen, continually seen simply as tokens and simply like as furniture, but they need to become center stage. But you said actually that has not been the case. It has been different. And I said, wonderful. I would really love to hear your view on that matter. So karibu sana, and you can just share your views on that.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for this discussion. It's a very rich discussion, but let me just declare upfront that I really would come in from a human rights perspective, an issue that really coming from development studies, we need to have everybody into development, and skewing it towards men or women or leaving one gender or one group out is really not my framework of thinking. Secondly, I would also want to maybe link it up with what you are saying when we talked over the phone. Really, these concepts like furniture, these concepts like flower, I think we just shouldn't even use them at all, especially as women, because they are just very problematic concepts. I mean, they are actually insults, I think. If somebody can call a woman leader in parliament or wherever, or be seen as a flower girl or as a furniture, as you are mentioning, I don't see it so. Thirdly, when you look at the topic that we have at hand about mobilization, women are very mobilized. The only niche or hitch we are having is on the political terrain. And that definitely is not a 50% score of anything. It's lower than 50%. But I do also acknowledge that political level is what takes people to the other levels, and is very important because it holds decision making and the rest. And my critical question has been, why are women not leveraging on these other aspects and strengths that we have, like, for example, collectivities? The very, very many women groups. I think what has played, the short video and the briefs that you've given are great. Women are really active, they are working, they are on board, but over the years, again, there has been this lens which I don't use, where people only think that if Mitchulla was in parliament or senate is when she would make sense in this country. I don't need to be in parliament or senate. I can make sense just the way Kamichu is making sense now. So that, what is it that we can do? How do we leverage? How do we pin together that mobilization, that synergy that rests with the women collectivities, whether it's in a women's group, a chama, name it, because it's very dynamic and active. Even very elite women have some groups, but there are also women who are very reluctant to even get into the political terrain. And yet it seems that the political terrain is what people are using as a yardstick in terms of measuring mobilization and people getting there. It's a good one, but it's not the only one. So going forward, one also needs to look at how do you leverage what already exists, and how do you link that with a few that we have? Like, again, I don't believe that, that we've made a lot of progress. There is deficit, but we've made a lot of progress. We are very proud to have 3 women in our second phase of the devolved system of governance. And we pray that in the 3rd phase, which is coming in 2022, we might even have 7, who knows, even 10, even more. And where, again, we need to look is, if you look at how many women, even that political, that everybody loves, if we look at how many women try to vie, present themselves, and the percentage that end up qualifying there is very high. It's similar to the men. If you take the percentage of women who tried to vie, what percentage were they and how many got through? Look at, for example, in the county assemblies, the percentage is the same. It's only the numbers are few. So probably going ahead, we will keep mobilizing to interest them to vie, so that we up the number that vie. If we are keen on political as the only apex, I think I'll reserve my more comments for later, so that we see how we loop in this political thing that everybody thinks is the panacea for sustainability and for making women be there. Thank you. Last but not least, I think I just saw a flash. I just saw a flash that the speaker has the 2/3 gender rule. He's thinking of it in terms of taking it to referendum. And this is just, even now, the most confusing. Why would you take something which is already in the constitution into a referendum? Of course, you did say that the CJ has already written to dissolve the government. So where does that take us? How can we mobilize as women? Because this is really an issue of mobilization, if we must talk about politics. Thank you.
Thank you. And I was very happy that you, first of all, you problematize the discussion and put question marks on what we are talking about, which is important because it helps us think things through. And the term furniture, first of all, maybe just to clarify, it's actually not even the women politicians that I was talking about when you talk about furniture, but the women's constituency, whereby the women's constituency is a constituency that's not taken seriously at all. Promises are made, promises are given, even this whole 2/3 gender, and we talked about it in some of the previous webinars. The promises that are made, there's just only lip service given, continual lip service given by the political class to women. But so the only reason that not enough seriousness has been given to the women's agenda is because there's a recognition that they on their own, they're not as strong, they're not a formidable force, so they can just be swept on the way. So I just wanted to put that up, and by all means you can be able to say some more about that, Professor.
We'll debate that later.
Sure.
I think women are there. They are there.
Okay.
It's just us upping the numbers and getting things right. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So, and I really like one thing that Professor spoke about, and that's the concept of leverage. I really, really like that, the recognition that women are organizing. But now the question is, how do we use it? How do we turn it towards to become a political force? Mm-hmm. And someone that has been doing it in the most fascinating way is here with us, Bina Maseno, and how she's been going out of her way, like getting out of her circles. Because I think there's the way in which we do politics is very straitjacketed. But she has been going the extra mile. She goes out. She doesn't tell women, the young women, to come to where we are, but she's actually going out to where they are, which is a very powerful thing, and something that is bound to bring to get success if you're in the world of mobilizing and marketing. That I was telling her that it's almost like political marketing that she's doing. So Bina, maybe it would be nice to hear, because we had a sit down and you told me about what you're doing, just using something that you know that women already like, using something that women already like. Women want to be beautiful. Women like makeup. It's something that brings women together. So it would be interesting to hear just your thoughts on leverage. On first of all, maybe say something about what you've been doing for our participants to just to hear about it, because it's extremely innovative, and just also your thoughts on additional ways in which we can leverage this other ways, other places and spaces in which women come together. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much for the discussion. Thank you so much to Conrad and to Kingwa, and for the amazing panelists. In fact, I was like, oh my God, some of the panelists here are people I look up to, mentors and all that. So it's an honor to be just seated and to just soak in on their knowledge today. So just to, I'll start with the latter, Kamenchu, and just to build up what Professor Mitchulla has said. I think for me, from where I am seated, number one, we have to recognize that women are not homogeneous. And they're not homogeneous. And to say that we cannot use the same ways of mobilizing them. We have to recognize and draw distinct lines in terms of, okay, if we're talking about we're mobilizing women, which women? Because when you say mobilizing young women, for instance, not many young women organize in chamas, you know? Politicians, yes, use chamas, but then how are young women organizing, you know? How, let's say, you know, maybe marginalized women in other spaces organizing. So I think we first of all need to be very clear in terms of the sort of women we are talking about, to understand how they organize, and then to understand how do we get to them. And I think that is what informed the work that we do, is that you find that perhaps most of us are in chamas because our mothers introduced us to chamas. But when we're in chamas, we don't see our peers in chamas. When you're in campus, you don't see campus girls in chamas. So it's deciding, where do we get these campus girl women? Where do we get urban women? You know, where are they organizing? Where do we find them? How do we talk to them? Which language do we use? If we look at just the recent census that was conducted, I think it said that we are at 50% when it comes to millennials and Generation Z. So what are the characteristics actually of Generation Z? You know, like these are people who were born from 1999, you know? These are digital natives. They cannot even imagine life without internet. You know, they cannot. Unlike some of us who can even have a conversation without a phone, but we still feel like, oh my God, I need my phone, you know, like my mom can even probably go 3 days, I'm at 2 days without a phone, and it's not a big deal. For me, it's already a big deal. If internet is not working, that's enough to spoil our day. For like most people, it's enough to spoil your day if your internet is not working. So the Generation Z, how are they organizing? Who are they, you know? And the fact that our population constitutes like 50% millennials, So when you look at the Kenyan population, if we are saying, let's say young people are 70%, half that number is young women who fall under millennials and who fall under Generation Z. So I think for me, it's just to be very clear in terms of what sort of women we're talking about, where do we find them, and how we are organizing them. And I think that is what led to our tactic in terms of using beauty to reach out to them, is that after running for political office and recognizing that I did not see my peers in political rallies, in political parties, even commenting on political issues online. And I think yesterday or the day before, I was just sharing the same and saying, like literally, even if you just look at Facebook, like look at the men who like talking about political issues, look at the comments. You'll see very few women commenting there, very few women, and fewer younger women even making comments on a political issue, you know, just to do a simple survey on your own timeline. And for me, that was a concern in terms of, I mean, you're not showing up in political parties, you're not showing up in political rallies, you're not blogging about this, you're not commenting about this. Is it that you do not understand how politics affects you? So for us, it was more of how do we invite different types of women to a space where we're able to discuss this, to a safe space, and not a forum where you feel like, oh my God, I have to sound politically right. I have to sound like I know. And that is when we began using beauty. You know, we began using beauty, setting up events where we work with makeup artists, we work with salonists, and young women like to look good. I don't think in my 20s, I was actually aware of the impact of gender equality, like just not attaining, achieving human rights when it comes to women issue. And like, I was not that much aware about it, but I did care about, I did have like self-care concerns, and I cared about how I look and all that. So we just use that as a platform to invite young women to this particular space and just then discuss this particular issue, like beyond how you look, beyond you caring about how you look. These are the issues that we need to discuss, because I think we also got tired of speaking to the same people who understand this political issue. You call for a civic, engagement forum, a democracy forum. It's the same people. In fact, even nowadays, when I go to this democracy forum, you know, the way during tea time you hug, it's like, you know, half the people in the room.
Family.
You know, you're hugging, you're pecking. Oh my God, what have you been up to? You know, and we did not want to have such a scenario where all the time we are speaking the same agenda to the same people. We're like, okay, how do we invite people who don't care about politics, don't want to engage in these particular spaces? And when we began having like makeup activism events where we call them like glam up sessions are an entry point. So we saw diverse kind of people come to the session, someone who's doing political political science, or someone who's doing hotel management, someone who's doing fashion and design, someone who's doing psychology. Is like, oh my God, I want to look good. And as you're looking good, someone is talking to you about political issues. Someone is finding out, did you vote? You know, why did you vote? What do you think about about these issues that are plaguing this country, you know? So I think just to leave it there and say, for me, it's to understand that women are not homogeneous, and as such, we can't use a homogeneous way of reaching out to them.
Thank you, Bina. And I always I tell you that what you're doing is profound. It is extremely innovative. What you're doing is market segmentation. What you're doing is you're actually shifting the ground, you're shifting the environment. It's extremely profound, and it's something that it's one of the new things that we are seeing in our political space, and it's very important because, first of all, the current political ground is toxic. It's full of discussions of ethnicity, corruption. So what you're doing is just like what you're doing is an extreme paradigm shift. And everyone who's here watching, you will remember this young woman. This is the future. What she's doing is the future of where our politics is going. It's all, you're actually bringing in an entrepreneurial aspect of things to the politics, and that's something that has continually been said, that there's a need to bring more order, to treat our politics in an entrepreneurial way. So you're really doing that, and I just want to salute you for that. So thank you so much. And then I also want to mention that our participants, we have not forgotten you, that we are very happy that you're here with us. And I see Lucy Odhiambo said women are very available. ready and more than willing, selflessly serve with diligence. We are here equal to the task to do things right and feed into the Kenyan political arena new fresh breath. Amen. Then Paddy Onyango, karibu sana Paddy, says, hi team, I'm happy to join. Yes, karibu sana Paddy, we are very happy to have you here, and everyone else as well. Also just to mention, I see Domi, Yambo, Emmanuel, Michael Kaloki, Mulialia, Mudhoni, I mean, Wendy Aura, Karibuni Sana, people that are that are in the same space really about thinking about political innovation, because that is what we are doing. That is what Konrad Adenauer has really been at the forefront of trying to host by bringing in even academic, the conferences that have been happening previously, and just creating a space really for innovators. So welcome our participants, and just feel free to keep on putting in your thoughts in the chat. We are joined as one of the panelists is Beatrice Kamau, a great field marshal in this time. A lot of us know her for her work, her tireless work, like we read in the introduction, her work tirelessly in fighting for human rights. And she is the executive director of Women Political Alliance, although she's here recommended by Sophie Dollar to represent the World March of Women. And of course, I mean, both organizations really speak into this discussion. But one thing that we were very interested to hear from Madam Beatrice Kamau is the question of mobilizing, and maybe the question of what are the lessons that we can learn about how women around the world are mobilizing? What are the lessons that we can learn in Kenya today? I know that the World March of Women is a global organization. This year's forum was supposed to be in Guatemala, but then because of Corona, it's going to every country will have to be in its chapter. So Madam Beatrice, you've had the opportunity to see women mobilizing for their actual interests and for their causes. So what are the, first of all, so maybe just to give your thoughts on this whole concept of political mobilizing, lessons we can learn from your own experience, your own insights, as well as lessons we can learn from women around the world. So karibu sana, Madam Beatrice.
Thank you very much, Madam Kimencho, and I'm humbled and also very happy to be invited to be one of the panelists in this great webinar. I am happy to be with Professor Winnie. It's long since we last met. I'm happy to hear even the people who have joined us, Kina Paddy Onyango, who is actually a great supporter of women, and I'm glad that he's with us. Paddy probably is more is a more supporter of women than any other group, and I am happy that he's around. I've been listening to people talking, and I am happy that we are discussing issues of women in politics. And the word politics, when you mention politics to women, it means different things. And I want to even start from where we started. I'm glad to hear Mudhoni is here, Mudhoni Kamau and Sophie, who are members of released political prisoners, and we are also members of World March. I'm also a member of World March. So when you say that I'm in Women Political Alliance, yes, it's true, but I'm also a member of Women Political World March. When we were in RPP, we were saying that although we think about, when we talk of political prisoners, we are talking of political prisoners who are in jail. Probably Kenyans are in a bigger jail, so they are all political prisoners, meaning that women are also political prisoners, and probably in a bigger deal because women have to do, because they are affected by issues that are affected by politics, they suffer most. They are the ones who are supposed to put bread on the table. They are the doctors at home. They are the mothers. They nurse their husbands. They nurse their parents. They nurse their children. When there's no water, they are the ones who know what to do. And all these things are connected to politics in one way or another. But when we talk of politics, you will find that even the women themselves, they will say, Mimi sitaki siasa, wacha siasa. The word politics is actually made to look or to look as if it's something very bad. You will hear a woman saying, mimi nimeokoka, I'm not a politician, or I don't want politics, yet they have to vote. And it is good that we are even talking where we are coming from. It is good that when we are explaining to women, they know that there was a time when women could not even vote. And it's a privilege that now even in our constitution, women can vote. So the other thing that I have found out is that when you talk about politics, or people will narrow it down to people going to parliament. And when they have narrowed it to people going to parliament, then it becomes the list of concern to women. Yes. When it is list of concern, I'm saying this because I have vied. Madam Kimenchu, I forgot to mention that I have vied as a women rep in Nyandarua County. When I didn't get, I vied to become a senator. When I didn't get, probably now I will vie for a governor. I'm not sure. And I congratulate you for vying as a presidential candidate. So you will find that when you are vying as a woman, it is your number one agenda. But to the people you are talking to, it is their last concern. Actually, most of them, not just women, but even the other people who are voting, will actually be looking at what you are supposed to give them. If you can't give them, they first value you with the car that you come with. They look at the money that you have. They look at the work. Then they say, okay, you are talking very well, but mkono mtupu haulambwi, or something like that. So, and women are not left out. So sometimes we say that we can mobilize, but we have just been discussing with Women Political Alliance and also World March of Women, whether we can have a different approach to leadership, because women are leaders in many other aspects. And these aspects also can be viewed as politics. If we rally women around issues that are concerning them, like issues of water, like issues of electricity, like issues of hospitals, then these are the kind of politics that they identify with. And the moment you start talking about that, they will understand. If you go to the farmers and you start talking to them about good seeds, about their market, about what they are supposed to do with the seeds that the crops that they grow, about not having brokers who are eating all the profit, which is part of politics that you will not hear every politician talking about. These are the things that will resonate with what women would want. And we have actually started saying that we want to look at women's style of leadership that can actually create, can rally and mobilize women around issues that are concerning them, so that when it comes to making choices, they are able to make the right choice of someone who will address issues concerning them, so that somebody will not come and stand and lie to them that he will be putting a borehole every 300 meters, and they believe. Because what they need is not boreholes in every 300 meters. They just need water flowing into their houses. Thank you. I think I will.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. I love how you've given it a whole new context. When you talk about Kenyans are in a bigger jail, we are all political prisoners. And what you're saying is actually speaks to what Bina has been trying to do. The whole issue of when you talk about politics, women like switch off. So that's very interesting. I see Professor Winnie Mitchulla is telling you thanks for vying severally and not giving up. That's the attitude that we need. Lucy Odhiambo says after college, most ladies retreat to work to put their foot down because the national political space is very dissimilar from the colleges and universities. Running for a seat proves to be a great challenge. And many sit back. So thank you for that. I also see Maina Karobia's views that we're going to comment that we're going to read. But I now want to now bring Sitawa Namwali into this. When we spoke, we had a very lengthy discussion. And one thing that came out was the question of consciousness. And I think it actually ties up with everything that we've been saying. The question of, are we aware of, is there a consciousness? Is there a women's consciousness? And I think everyone that's spoken before has said that actually there's not just one homogeneous thing called women. but it's an issue of, but I mean, there's different sectors of women with different needs. And if you're looking at it like as an entrepreneur, then you do recognize that you cannot, that there's that different market segments, which is important to recognize. But around it all was a question of where is our collective consciousness as women? Is it necessary? Is it possible? When I was talking with Sitawa, she talked about outrage and the way in which, despite all the things that happened towards really the realities of women in this country, that where is a national outrage? And one, I guess the most recent example that comes to mind for me was captured by a musician, Monaja. I've seen him in the chat over here. The song was called Sikunjema, really good song. We should have played it, but it reminded us of two particular incidents that happened during this time of Corona. And the first was a woman who had, because she wasn't able to afford her rent and everything, she was locked out by her landlord. So she went to a construction site and was sort of like seeking solace, shelter from the rains and everything. With her children, but her children, like the baby was crying, and then like thugs had the babies crying, and they came to her, they raped her, they brutalized her. Another example, which we all know about, was the woman who was boiling stones to feed, to pretend to her children that, yeah, it's okay, don't worry, there's food coming. And it ended up that one of her children ended up crying. And just like really, every time I hear that song, I cry, like, and I'm like, but there's a way in which I'm tired of crying personally, and I think a lot of us are tired of crying. But the question of where is the outrage? Yes, we are different groups of people, but how can we use these different experiences of women to make something happen, to get things moving forward? How long? I think we are beyond that. We all know the problems, and we're at the point of solution. So Sitawa, tell us your own thoughts about the whole issue of a consciousness. Is it possible to form a consciousness of women to be able to come out and, because it's also about not pointing fingers and saying, oh, men are, it's about, can we be the solution givers? Can we, and I feel it's time that we can't keep on, like, in a broken system, the women are the ones who the effects are felt hardest on them. So yes, Sitawa, what are your thoughts on this? Yeah, you can feel free to unmute yourself.
Okay. Thank you very much for inviting me to this really interesting panel, and with all these wonderful women who are doing such great work and continue to do such great work. So first of all, one of the things that I want to say is don't get tired. Don't get tired, because the same conversation, yes, we're having very similar conversations that we had in my time, that probably my mother had, and that is because there is no great miracle coming. There's no great clap in the large great light that is going to come shining, and then everything will be taken care of. What I believe is that the work of the previous generations makes possible the next conversation, the next action, the next thing that needs to happen, and that of course is the ideal, because we also go backwards and we also zig and zag, right? So one of the things that I've seen in my life is that we've got to keep finding new ways to say the same thing. Wow. And we are shifting. We are shifting. We are going forward. We are moving forward, like Professor Winnie said, and various other women who've spoken have said. There is progress. I mean, just this panel talks progress that a 23-year-old woman can stand. And we did have, remember, we had a 24-year-old woman who stood and won. And what was her name?
Mitchulla. We can't hear you. There's something with the...
Can't hear me.
Yes.
You hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what I was saying is that Chelagat Mutai, one of my heroes, in 1974, she was a 24-year-old woman, and she won. She went and won an election, right? And she became a very prominent in fighting for justice in this country. Yeah. So in my view, we are constantly fighting. We're fighting very similar battles. The progress can be incremental. Sometimes the progress goes backwards, but we have no choice but to keep fighting. The experience I'd like to share is that in 2012 and 2020 up to 2016, I was doing some work in Rwanda and working with the government of Rwanda. And I remember a minister of Rwanda said to me something so interesting, which I had never considered. She said, the women in Rwanda have political power, but they do not have economic power. And the women of Kenya have economic power, but they don't have political power. Yeah? When you travel, sometimes you can see and meet people who understand you and show you something about yourself.
Wow.
And I was really amazed. And if you think about it, it is so true. We don't have access to the political, formal political platforms, the representation, going into, parliament and so forth, as much as, for example, Rwanda, where right now it's over 60% representation of women, right, in leadership. Yeah, but we do have economic power. We have another place where we are expressing our desire to lead and our desire to fulfill our dreams. There was a time when we're talking about a consciousness. I think one of the interesting things about the political progress is that during the Moi era, when life was very difficult, when the space for political space was very narrow, there was a very focused movement. If it was a women's movement, it was much more focused, much more intentional. And just like civil society was incredibly powerful. So there was a lot of the organizing in terms of political movements were also really strong, and very powerful and very organized. And I think now, when we got what we wanted, when we got the space, when we got the democratic space that we needed and we were asking for, it seems to have fallen away. The organizing and the collective consciousness seems to have become diluted, and the partnerships across disciplines. We used to have huge meetings. I mean, if you remember, we had a huge UN conference in Kenya in the 80s, and I had just come out of university, and I was involved in helping organize that conference, and it was the most fascinating thing ever, where women from all over were, all over the political divide, we all came together and to help organize this conference, and amazing alliances were formed, and you could sense the power of the power of the organizing that we had then, the collective power and the collective consciousness. And I feel that it is it's diminished, and it's diminished everywhere. It isn't just women in the women's sector. It is actually in many sectors. And that is something that we need to think about and to see how do we connect? How do I connect with these women here who the work I do is that I'm recovering the memory of women. I'm writing about Chelagat Mutai, we're performing women, we theater women. We're writing about Mekatilili. One of my most recent works is about Kimpavita. Kimpavita was in Congo, exactly, the memory, because whose shoulders are we standing on? We're standing on such giants, and let us know our pedigree. So I just want to stop there for now.
Wow. Thank you, Sitawa. Two things come out. First of all, the generational aspect of things. And then also just the fact that there once was a very vibrant, actually the mobilizing of women, the consciousness was once very vibrant. And you mentioned that you had been, like when we spoke earlier, you had been part of FIDA when it was in its founding phases. And I remember, I think that was in the 90s, and I remember like FIDA was like this dragon like this scary entity of women coming together, which says something about the power of when women come together with a particular goal, with the goal of seeking their power. But you talk about what you say has, you probably did not mean to throw the challenge, but you have thrown a challenge to the younger generation about that. Mobilizing and organizing has been done. It was done previously. People like Tabitha Say, people like Mumbingaru, people like, I mean, so many other people that we spoke to even before having this, even before this particular meeting for today. So many women really that have been part of the history of women in politics. Lina Jembi, I mean, Phoebe Asio, Grace Onyango, etc. That they paid their dues and they did what they could, but the baton has been passed on. So it's now a question of, if we are saying that there's not enough mobilizing going, then the finger is being pointed back to now the younger generation about, are you doing enough? What are you doing? So thank you. That's a very very interesting thing. And then the issue of economic power, I wanted to laugh because it made me think of, the stereotype, the cliche of anti-Waharia, like, that whole, because cliches and stereotypes speak something very loudly. And the fact that we have something called anti-Waharia, the fact, even the whole idea, that actually we are at a place when, end time, when women do have quite a bit of economic power. Of course, there is inequity and that there is a large segment of women that are not well off, but yes, women do have strong economic power. And interestingly also is, there's a way in which, okay, now this is gonna be like a stereotype to use, but women, economically powerful women tend to have a lot of philanthropical and tend to be very charitable. Like what comes to mind is, there was a lady after the post-election crisis, I think she gave out either 10 acres of land or 100 acres of land just to resettle people. But the reason I say that, the reason I talk about that, I use that stereotype term, is that the fact that if we are indeed at a time when there are so many people that don't have, yet there are people that have, then it's actually about bringing these two groups together. It's not actually about organizing. It's actually about forming community, which is another thing, another very powerful thing that you've brought out, Sitawa. So thank you for that. So Mina's talk says that youth and women have been clustered as marginalized groups. Given we form the lion's share, it's time we respect our respective issues. This platform is opportune to draw mechanisms to effect the vision. And then Paddy says we are having a strategic dialogue where the CJ has today advised the president to dissolve parliament for failing to enact a law giving effect to the two-thirds gender rule. It must be appreciated that it's not the CJ or the president dissolving parliament. It is the constitution executing itself and affirming the principles of the rule of law and constitutionalism. Millie Luanga says, great insights thus far, kudos. I dare say that the issue remains mobilizing towards what agenda? Millie, that's a very powerful question. Many of the women, majority of who are young, want level playing field. The older women believe in special action that will bring in more women. And then Paddy says again, thus far the gender question and women's inclusion has been framed in terms of numbers more than substance. Powerful point. Moving forward, we need to confront the structures that inhibit women's effective participation in politics. Let us re-examine the electoral system, for example. Weak economic foundation is one of the structures I'm referring to. So thank you for that. So I wanted to just go back full circle to Professor Mitchulla, and just to ask the question of learning from what has been happening over the years. And I love the fact that you talked about leverage. How, and also in the context of what has been said, the fact that there are different constituencies of women, women are not homogeneous. The fact that women do not have this sort of like, not disdain, but almost no interest per se, like they switch off. It's almost like sports. Like when you hear sports is on TV, okay, let me go and do something else. So Professor, it would be interesting to hear your thoughts on how do we, and this is something that Winnie, I mean that Bina will also be able to benefit from as she tries to mobilize younger women. How do we introduce politics in these forums, in the forums that we talk about, because we talked about leverage? How do we plug politics in? How do we do what Beatrice said, which is about making it about addressing the water issues, the food issues, the real life issues that are actually what politics is, but minus the smoke and mirrors. How do we do that? What is possible, just in your thoughts?
Okay, thank you very much. I like Beatrice's position that says that when we tell women about politics, they even tell you they are saved. Very interesting, you know. They think when you are saved, then you don't have to get into this murky terrain of Kiweleke, Tangatanga, dynasty, and you know, they're just big words that don't make a lot of sense. But for women, I think the concept of intersectionality also we must bring on board, because women are really dealing with so many things. So it's not like sitting that if you have a job after job, you come and sit and think of what next, where do I go? You have so much in your hands. You have children waiting to take care of. You might have your cousin, you might have a sick person you are taking on. So there are so many things that you don't quite divert a lot. But probably we use the concept of decision-making, you know, the decision-making, just the concept of decision-making and how women must also contribute to decision-making, because really politics is about decision-making and more so resolving conflicts when there are disagreements over decision-making, over allocation of resources. Today, even if you ask many men, now that we think that men are very successful, ask any of those your fellow friends who are male, how many of them know the budget of their wards? That's the simplest thing you can mobilize even women about. Do they know the budget? Do you, as Kamenchu, know the budget of the ward where you live in Nairobi today? Do you know how much it is? And if you know how much it is, do you know what is aligned to serve that budget? That's where it starts. Men don't have that. But why do we believe that men then have the power to still represent and to still be good politicians? There is really no logic. The entire thing doesn't have logic. So I quite agree that we need to present politics in a different way. And as Beatrice Kamau has argued, we need to bring it in a way that it doesn't look like just the hard stuff that you know, means fighting, means big issue. There is no big issue in it. I also would like to know, like Kamenchu, I know you're a young lady and very active. There are so many young ladies who are very active during campaigns, and they're very, very active. I see them around all political parties. I see them all around, because we've also discussed the issue of we have to mobilize differently. Chama is a generic concept. When we say chama, we even mean those little groups that you have for going out and joining Willis Raburu on whatever his program on Friday or Saturday and dance to hell on that program. It's the same, because it's just coming together. The question is, as they rig and dance over there, what are they discussing after? Is there any take home about issues that concern us that are broader than just dancing and going home? So indeed, there are different ways of mobilizing, and we can mobilize in very different ways, but that consciousness that make you do these things in a very deliberate manner, in a way that you know where to put your pin, because it's knowing where to put your pin. I think men are very good at pinning. They know what to pin. And then again, we get back to what Paddy Onyango is saying. The issue of resources, economic ability, and education. I think you crack those two. If you look at women who have gone to school, they have economic power. Probably they are able to also, more numbers of them are able to try these other extra things like mobilizing, sensitizing each other, and also getting into those platforms of decision making, which in our level today begins at that participatory budgetary processes that we have at the local level, at the county level. Those public hearings that are called for, whether it's a commission, the moment you start showing in those places, your self-consciousness start getting up. So I don't believe in the self-consciousness of a group of women are marching to go and protest in parliament, that this is wrong. You can do it, but it's an add-on. What I believe in is that ability of women being in each and every space. Each and every space you are there and you are able to put your point, and you are also able to engage with the processes of engagement that then take you to the next step. But when we pull it out and say, oh, we now have to raise their consciousness because 2022 is coming, I think the last 2-3 elections have just given up, because you will soon see a lot of women being very active, and also, you know, agencies very active funding women. These women ought to have been funded from 2017, 2018 January, to start monitoring budgets, to start engaging in politics, to start apprehending their leaders, and to start engaging. That's the kind of mobilization I believe in. This single isolated mobilization works, but it's an add-on. It is not the type that takes us to the next level. So I really think that going forward, we need to support each other as women, but we also need to encourage each other to be in those different spaces. And there are very many spaces. We are already seeing women there, but we are not yet enough. But men are also not enough. So it's not a game of just women not being enough. We need just sensitive people who know about the Constitution, what it provides for, how to get engaged in decision-making, and all the participatory processes that are on board. And if we go that way, we will have two very good streams. Some pop-up streams that are not going to be popping up because women marched or women were in a group as women, but because other women, and we have them, we have a number of women who have education and networks. Another concept is networks. Networks take forward even a man and a woman who has never stopped into a classroom, can even be a senator. And we have them. We have people who don't have very high education. They don't have even resources as much, but because they had networks, those networks were able to take them to the next step. So we have a big job to do, and it has to be really all round, not pointing in one direction in terms of taking women to the next level. I'll stop there and come back if there will be time.
Thank you. Very, just very, very concise and well thought out. Thank you, Professor. Beatrice, I really love your understanding of politics. I really love your conception and the fact that you even bring out something that we hadn't talked about, the whole issue in which our politics is very dehumanizing. The way, and Bina also, I'm sure she experienced this, that you go out and the first thing voters want from you is, what can you give them? Not what can you give them in terms of a vision or a manifesto or ideas, but cash in hand right now. And also the way they judge, like what car has she come in? Has she come in a helicopter? You know, like it's become extremely transactional. There's nothing wrong with transactional, but it's become quite toxic, because I've had stories of how candidates, political candidates, have been chased from meetings, like literally chased and almost beaten up because they turned up without money, and which is a very dangerous thing. It does something very bad to the spirit of what we are trying to do, especially change makers, because the change makers are the ones who go out with their ideals, like the dangerous dreamers, the ones who try. And when it gets rubbished and pushed into your face, it can really mess you up and make people very bitter. So, Beatrice, the question that I would be interested is, for you, what has been your answer about how to make politics resonate? Because you brought in that word, that very good word, making politics resonate. What has been your answer so far about how to make it something that, how to present it to women in a way in which they see their stake in it, rather than feeling like you're just there to con them so that you can go to parliament and make money, steal money, and yeah. So for you, what has your thinking process been about how to make politics resonate, and moving it beyond that that perception that you're just the evil politician there to con them?
Thank you, Kamenchu. I may not have the answer to that, but I first want to say that we are not as bad as we think. The problem with us women is that we beat ourselves too hard. We say we keep complaining. I stopped complaining about 10 years ago, and I said that I want to always be on the front line to make the changes that I would want to see. It has not been easy.
Amen.
It has not been easy, but I think if we all started in our small ways, we would be able to do that. One of the things that has been very challenging is the meaning of democracy in this country. Do you think that Kenya conducts democratic elections, despite putting all those things in place and all that? What happens during political parties nominations and also elections? Do you think that is democracy? In an ideal situation, people should make their own minds, but people don't make their mind, and they are usually bought, or they get these monies. So for me, I think why they get that is because there is also a vacuum in that once people go to that parliament, people cannot recall them, or the mechanism of recalling them is not even viable, or it cannot be, although it is there in the constitution, it has not been given the weight that it deserves. Then you find that this mentality of people going to it, starting from the county at the MCA level up to the presidential level, where people will think that they are going, it is our time to eat, it is my person's time to eat, it is my tribesman time to eat. Is it supposed to be a servant leadership or a eating leadership? These are the questions that people ask. And that is why women will only come during that time. They think it is not their business. Politics is not their business until that day of voting where they can sell their vote. And I think they are right in doing that because they don't know any other way. But if we were to look at, because now we have the youth, and the majority of voters in this country are youth, and they can actually read, and they can actually even help their parents, especially the ones who need the help. If we can put them to demand for the duty bearers to do what is supposed to be done, we would not have those millions of shillings being stolen, because that money is supposed to be going to the Mwananchi, to the Wanjiku. I remember when I was pushing for the constitution change, I was believing that after the new constitution, we would have a heaven in Kenya. I thought that women, the burden of women would be taken away by Article 43, by Chapter 4 of the Constitution, where we have the 2/3. I want just to give us some of the things that made that section 2/3, that section, is it 27C, to pass, is because women came together. They forgot about political parties. They would join hands. Mother Karua, there was Millie Othiambo. They forgot about their parties. They forgot about everything, and they said they defended that article with all their energy. There were many articles that had been put and they were kicked out from the constitution, but that particular one, they knew, and men overlooked it. They knew that if they left that section of the 2/3, it would be a key to so many other gains for women, which I am believing that today all women should rally behind the Chief Justice and ensure that we support him. Let that parliament be what do we call it? What is the word? Let it be dissolved. Yeah, so that they know the power of the constitution. And if parliament today is dissolved, then we will talk about women politics. We will talk about women politics bearing fruits, and women mobilizing, bearing fruits. Because you can mobilize today, but the fruits you have them 12 years down the line. We got the constitution in 2010, but now is when we are getting the first fruit, if that parliament will be dissolved. But woe to it if we don't support the Chief Justice, and it will just be another story which will be told and written in the books of history. You asked me how we can plug in the women in politics. I had mentioned a few things, looking at the things that touch on women. There is a program that was being done by Care Kenya in Nyandarua County, specifically Kinangop, where they decided to work to address the issue of economic empowerment and gender. And they were actually able to hold workshops for men and told men that they should help the women in the farm. And then they should also be discussing and putting resources on the table. Some of it has really borne fruits because the fighting and the poverty level has gone down because men and women are able to plan together in their small ways in their village. And they are saying that now they are enjoying more time. Husbands are saying that they are feeling more appreciated at home because they can be, they are being called those nice names that once you get married, you never call your husband. So those small things actually make a lot of difference. Then somebody mentioned about the budgeting. If you can relate this budgeting to the work that woman, the grassroots, is supposed to benefit, and she realizes and she knows the money, then she will be the one who will rise up and fight for her right. Then one of the things that we have been working around as a World March is to ease the burden of women, that is easing their work, so that like when they cook with gas, or when they have water at home, or when they can be able to have hospitals, or when they can reach the health facilities, then this woman has time to do all her duties, and at the same time now address the developmental issues which are secondary. But her primary work is the one that pulls her down. I have seen somebody writing that women are their own enemies. But who said that men love each other? And who said that women should love each other enemies? I don't like hearing that crap. Because do men love themselves, or do they love each other so that women can become their own enemies? That is a stereotype from men, and it is men who start it and women follow. So if women don't like each other, would these chamas be succeeding in the villages? Women are the backbone of this nation. And they are the backbone of this nation because of the work that they do, despite the fact that they are not paid for that kind of work that they do. And it is the high time that we started coming with policies that recognize the work that women do, be it of rearing children, because these children become the taxpayers in future, and then they benefit the country. Benefiting such that when they are not working, they are also being paid. Then I also heard somebody talk about women in Kenya being economically empowered and politically not empowered. What is being economically empowered? Is it when a broker comes and takes all your money? When we talk about economic empowerment, I would really want to understand. And then when we say that women are not politically empowered, what is it? I think we really need to define the meaning of politics in the eyes, or in the eyes of a woman, or what is it that, if you told a woman to define politics, what would it mean? Then probably if we start from there, women have the answers. Women have the answers of how to become or how to elect one of their own. All they need to do is probably, we should not be going with the answers to women. Then we should also appreciate that there are different types of leadership. It is not just going to parliament. You don't just have, there are many types of leadership. We have chiefs. We have women who have become chiefs and they are doing very well. We have women who are church leaders and they are doing very well. So it is our duty now to bring up these styles of leadership, and we see how we can use them so that we are able to make politics attractive to even women. When we were asking a question of women in whether they participate in politics, most of the married women said no. They said that because the people who go to those politics don't have morals. And that is not the truth, because it is not the truth, but that is what they have been made to believe. And some of the men were saying that they would not even allow their wives to go to politics. They only allow them to go and vote. So if you're not allowed to participate in discussions, in political discussions, then how do you vote for the right person? You will wait for this person who told you not to go to give you the direction. Yet for them, they usually go every evening after taking lunch. Wanatoka wanaenda huko camp at the shopping centers, and they go and discuss politics. You can't expect these people to be at the same level. How do we introduce women, or how do we introduce good politics in women groups? How do we, so that by the time, we have actually been saying, can we encourage women groups to even be reading part of the Constitution, just one section, and then they talk about it before they go with their business of clearing money out or something like that. That way, I believe that we will be making a headway. But the answer of women not knowing politics, I believe they know, but sometimes they are not given the chance, or sometimes it is not their business because they have other pressing issues.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Beatrice. I feel like clapping. You said so many profound things. I even wrote in capital letters that we need to define politics from the eyes of the women. We need to understand. We need to approach it from their perspective. And also, I like that you talked about we should not be going with the answers to women, but it should just be part of the process. And you made me think of what Professor Wangari Maathai was doing. That actually was what she was doing with Greenbelt. Like, for her, she was not just mobilizing women, they were part of what she was doing. It was not just mobilizing you so that we can win the election, but it's about, this is the vision, this is what we are working towards, this is how you benefit. Because I think there was also a financial benefit for women with that. So very, very profound. Asante, Betty. Jennifer Kianga says that it's, okay, yeah, so Jennifer talks about women being their own worst. She says, actually, women leaders are good performers and exercise high levels of integrity and accountability. Jennifer, just to speak to that, like, if you speak to any woman in politics, she will tell you that her best and her most important people have been fellow women. Me, myself, I can tell you that for free. Like, all the other women that I spoke to today were talking about the importance of the mentorship. People like Millie Odhiambo, who we hosted previously, was talking about without the women around her, she would never have been. So it's true that story, that narrative has been a propaganda that has been used. Women are their best friends, and that's the reality. Nairobi Kageshu says, Professor Mitchulla raises a very fundamental method of becoming involved. Being participatory is a great way to raise consciousness. Elizabeth Kangede says, very healthy talk, ladies. It's our time to raise up. Mayor Elizabeth Kangede, London, UK. Karibu sana, Mayor. I'm very honored to have you here, as well as with everyone, all the other participants. And then Paddy Onyango says, women's economic disempowerment has everything to do with the economic model we have. It is healthily tilted in favor of men. And actually, Paddy, it makes me remember what something that Beatrice said, the question of women being allowed to take part in politics. It brings up the issue of women's personal power. Where is women's personal power in this country? What is the concept of women being allowed to do certain things? So we're going to have Sitawa and Bina say something, but before that, I just want to point out that we are joined by Honorable Esther Passaris. She's a Nairobi County Women Rep. And what would be interesting would be to hear her own perspective of how has her own organizing and working with women been? What are the lessons that she's learned from her time in politics? Because she's been in politics for quite a while, both from the outside. She tried the first time, it did not work. And then now when she is a women representative and she has quite some clout politically. So I'll just give her an opportunity to just give her own perspective on how yeah, what are the lessons that you've learned, Mheshimiwa? Karibu sana, Honorable Pasaris.
Okay, so can
and
you...
before you say, let me say something. Just very, very happy to have you here. You are a woman leader with heart. You have a lot of soul. You are a person that really wants the well-being of this country. And I want to say, I'm saying this because I think that a lot of our politicians are continually beaten up and are continually sort of trashed and blamed for everything. So I just wanted to begin by acknowledging you, acknowledging your work. I know it's not easy. You're working in a very dehumanizing system, but you still keep on going. So karibu sana, Mheshimiwa.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because I can't see myself. I can only see 3 people on the screen. So can you see me as well?
We can't see. Maybe try the video, but we can hear you. But you can just go ahead as you try to.
Maybe it's the way I logged in. So because I can't see the option of video.
Yes, that's it. That's actually probably it. Yeah.
Okay, so it's okay. First of all, I want to say thank you. Sorry I joined late. I had so many items on my agenda and I was only informed about this meeting yesterday, but I said I would pop in and have a discussion. Wow, being a woman leader. Do you know that there's an expression that I've just coined? They love you before they elect you and they hate you as soon as they elect you. You know, I know it's like we have this love-hate relationship with the electorate. You're blamed for everything. I think it was Beatrice who said, or somebody said that we need to have sessions where women read the Constitution or citizens read the Constitution and understand the Constitution. People don't understand the Constitution. So, for instance, this woman representative, I don't represent women only. I represent everyone. All right. The only reason it's called women representative is because the seat is held by a woman as an affirmative action seat where women compete with women to have more women in parliament. So there's this perception that my job is to represent women. My job is to represent everybody, irrespective of sex, irrespective of gender, irrespective of position. I represent the rich, the marginalized, the persons with disability, mental health. Basically, I'm a member of parliament. I'm just titled woman representative. So, and I'm a county woman rep, you know, so, or a county member of parliament. So the perception of, again, of the title, in fact, it's so funny, when men are introducing themselves in parliament, you know, in a committee meeting, a man will say, my name is X, or a constituency MP will say, my name is X, and I'm the MP for X constituency. When it comes to the women, you find a lot of women don't want to be called women representative. I'm the women representative for X county. They want to say, I'm the county member of parliament for Nairobi County, for instance. Now, so that's another thing. I think the way we coined the name was wrong. We had this incident in Pumwani recently, and everybody felt it was my responsibility. I should have been there when she was giving birth. Where were you when she was giving birth? I mean, why are you talking to us now? And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm not supposed to be there if a woman is giving birth on a highway, you know? What are you doing about the hospital? I don't run Pumwani. I'm not the mayor. I'm not the governor. I'm not in charge of the county level 5 hospital.
And you can't be everywhere at the same time. It would be interesting to hear what have you in terms of mobilizing women, especially when I say mobilizing, giving the voice and the issues of women. And yes, I'm glad that you've given that grounding, that it's not just about that you don't serve women alone. But I find that most, because in the last webinar we had a young woman, about 23 years old. She was an elected MCA, and she said that the bulk of her voters was women. So I don't know if it was the same thing for you. Did you find that when you were running for your seat, was a bulk of your voters and your campaign, was a bulk of your voters women? And have there been lessons that you've learned about mobilizing women and making in terms of the women's agenda, even if just really over time? It'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on that.
Okay, first of all, mobilizing women. When we campaign, we team up as a political party, first of all. We also team up as county members who are looking for a position. So for instance, for Nairobi, the senator, the governor, the deputy governor, the woman rep, we're all campaigning together. And if we go into a constituency, we are campaigning with the men in that constituency. If we go to a ward, we're campaigning with the ward rep. Now, when you look at Nairobi has 85 wards. We only have 5 women that came in. Nairobi has 17 constituencies. We only have 1 woman that came in. So when you look at Nairobi, if it wasn't for the affirmative action seat that I'm holding, we would have only had 1 woman come in because the senator and the governor were both men. Now, when you're campaigning, Kenya has a population demographic of 50-50, 50% women, 50% men. We know that women go out to vote, but the irony is when we're out there campaigning, you find that even if it's a handout or something, we normally focus on the men rather than the women, because the men are right on the front trying to demand handouts from the women, from the elected, the people who are looking for votes. So, but when we mobilize to talk to groups, town hall meetings, that's where you find women are really the best in doing that. You call women groups and they come and they organize themselves a lot better. Women don't want to be on the highway, or they don't want to be on the stadium, because they cannot, the push and pull with the men is too much. So you find that when you want to talk to women, you go to organized groups, all right? And even when you want to serve women, you go to organized groups, and they're a bit more organized than men. This whole idea of chama is and table banking has become like a norm right now in Kenya, but not everybody is organized in groups. Now, when it comes to serving them and understanding their issues, we work through CBOs, we work through special self-help groups, we work through NGOs, we work through the grassroots leaders. I'm very fortunate that I come from a political party that has been there for many years and it's very organized in terms of its structures. So when you want to meet people, you can work, you can capitalize on those structures. But of course, when you're elected, you don't serve your political party, you serve the entire county. So in terms of mobilizing women, I think the biggest challenge that I have right now is trying to identify, forget the 2/3 gender, we want 50-50, trying to identify 50 women who can take up the county assembly seats, trying to identify 10 women who can take up the MP seats, and then trying to groom them. Now, in terms of women's issues and needs, when I got in, I realized that we've made it very difficult for mature women who we don't classify as youth to access funding in the affirmative action groups. For PWDs, you have to be 10. For young youth under 35, you have to be 20. But for women or mature citizens, to get women economic empowerment, right, you have to be 100. Okay, so we're making it very difficult for women to access funding. I'm trying to make sure the regulations are changed for that. We also had sanitary towels as an issue. All right, we providing sanitary towels to public schools. We're not providing them to community-based schools, and that's where the majority of our citizens go. So women bring you these issues. All right, right now, look at Nairobi. It's a big capital city. We don't have a government-owned safe houses. You know, and yet we're talking COVID and all the problems that we have in terms of violence and gender-based violence. So for me, as a leader right now, I think men are so fed up, and they made us look like we're the Punda Machoka. We're the ones that are the burden to as leaders. And you find that the social media, I don't know what's wrong with Kenya. I mean, men just hate women. It's like, I'm a woman, I'm the county woman rep, I've got 17 constituencies, I've got 85 wards to serve as the county woman rep. I'm earning the same money, the same salary as the MP who's got a constituency. And yet I have to work through the entire area. All right. And then you find that the demand
on a lower budget even.
Yeah, I mean, even the money that I get in terms of affirmative action is 6 million shillings when the man has 100 million in his constituency. How can you compare? Though we have different things that we're doing. And the men will never raise the money because they're the majority, because they're worried about us having.
Hello. Hello. I think Mheshimiwa was cut off as she was talking, but I think she's going to join us again. Just so Michael Kaloki says, interesting perspectives. I feel that there should be a chapter 2 of this discussion involving women from all corners of the country. One question that I feel needs to be raised is the role of media. It's a very good point, Michael. He says, do you feel that the media is doing enough to highlight this discussion? Is there a way that editors of media organizations can be involved in this narrative? Radio has become a strong message tool in Kenya. Perhaps this can be a discussion slotted into radio programs across the nation. This might be one way to reach the women and men as well around the country. Then Domi Yambo Odote says, asked, does the constitution not mandate the women reps to women's issues at the county level to deal exclusively with women's issues? And then Professor Mitchulla says, the position of woman rep was framed under the principle of affirmative action, so the reference is quite okay. Honorable Esther Pasrai should restrict her budget to women. So I think I think Honorable Pasrai was here, but I think we've lost her. But thank you so much. Oh yes, I see that she's back with the attendees. So thank you so much, Mheshimiwa. You hadn't finished what you were saying. I don't know if it was an issue of the microphone, but if you'd like to finish it, we could give you about 2 minutes. We could bring you back up here for 2 minutes. So now we have about 20 minutes to go in this discussion. So first of all, just to appreciate some of the very powerful things that have come up here, both from our panelists and the participants, and everybody else. Professor Mitchulla has talked very strongly about leverage, about networks. Bina just keeps taking us back again to the concept of market segmentation and working and going to where the customer in quotes is. Beatrice talks about the question of how to make politics resonate, how to make politics matter to women, how to talk politics, how to perform politics in a way that is beyond the superficial, that women feel they are part of this, they are stakeholders. Sitawa gave us a generational challenge. It reminded me of Walteronio, I forget who, the one who says about the generational challenge. I forget that very famous quote. And she also brings out the whole issue of building community in relation as well to what Professor Mitchulla says about networking. So moving forward is a question of how do we, first of all, some very powerful things have come up, some very powerful concepts. And grounding this was a question of centering women as a political force. Of course, it's not going to happen in one day. It's going to be a process, and these discussions such as this are a part of the journey. And also, I want to acknowledge that all the panelists have been continually doing that, as well as the participants, just in their own different ways. But moving forward, what is needed? What can we do? What more? What needs to be done? What tangibly, even after this discussion, how can we translate this to what we are actually already doing? And maybe this then would be an opportunity to have everyone talk about their own current projects and how everyone else here can be roped into that. So Sitawa, I know that you have been doing a lot in terms of performance. There was a project you had on the hemlines, on miniskirts, on fashion. Do you have a show that's coming up that we all need to be, to really get on point? And how can we, because for us, and these discussions as well, they're about building into the energies. It's not about assuming that nothing is going on, but recognizing that every single person is doing something very important, not just the panelists, but also the participants. So how can we build onto that? And I think one of the key things might be the whole question of networking and building communities, which is all part of what we're trying to do here in a very particular spirit. I see that Honorable Pasais has raised her hand. We're going to have you back here. So Karibu Sana.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kingwa. First of all, what I'd like to say is that we feminists say the personal is political. Everything is political. Absolutely everything is number one. It isn't just going for an elective post that is political. Everything, what are you buying when you go shopping? How did you get there? The woman who gave birth in public the other day, the horror of horrors, that is incredibly political. It's telling us something. It's communicating. Yeah, we need to hear what's being communicated. And then I'd also like to say something about the methods and the approaches. Every approach is legitimate. Every single approach. If I want to stand in the middle of Uhuru Park by myself or downtown somewhere by myself, that is an important method. That takes such incredible courage. Last year, I went on a march for the first time because I was so upset about the murdering of young women in this country. And that was important. You know, I think one of the things we Kenyans need to stop doing is we need to stop telling each other how we should do things. We really need to stop telling each other how we should. This one is important. That one is. How do you know? You're actually not God. And there's a very powerful woman who has just died in America, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. The work that she did, if you looked from far, you may have thought, what is that? It's not doing very much. She created such amazing progress for women, you know, very quietly, very strategically. And let us remember, each one of us, we are contributing. So everything, for me, everything that we're doing is a contribution, right? Another thing that I'm interested in as a writer, as a poet, as a playwright is language, the use of language. We need to become very conscious and questioning. When we use, when we say something like, women are their own worst enemies, where did that come from? My supporters, and most women supporters, most women, you'll find their supporters are fellow women. First of all, the reality is that if you have men as your supporters, your husband will freak out.
I think there's a network problem, Sitawa. I think there's a network problem. We can't get you very well, so maybe
heard that, you know, to be used against us. You know, in my time, it was elite, the elite woman. You were supposed to apologize because you were not barefoot and pregnant, even though you escaped the inevitable, you know, problems that many women are forced to bear, and then you're still punished for it. So you cannot win when you're barefoot and pregnant and, you know, being dominated, and then when you're independent and, you know, you went to school, etc., and it worked for you, it's still your problem. And it's a structural problem. So we've got to stop and start thinking about language and not just throwing it around because we heard it. I mean, I've been hearing this nonsense language for so long. I'm actually tired. If you're going to use discriminatory language, be original. Come up with something new. Don't give me that nonsense that I've been hearing for the last 50 years. Starkey, be original. So the other thing that I'm doing is, you know, I do write a lot in relation to women, a woman's perspective. You know, we spend our days, our years listening to male perspectives everywhere. And so we must speak up. We must be known. You know, do I dare to be known? You know, we talk about, oh, women this and not being represented. Do I dare to be known? Do I dare to say, I am an ambitious woman. I want to be president. I want to be member of parliament. So all these women here are saying, this is who women are. You know, they're representing women in standing up and saying, I'm standing for president, or I'm heading an organization, etc. So we speak in so many different ways, and I do have webinar shows which I will share with you. I'll have one in November, and I do have webinar shows because now we have to learn how to operate in this space. because we can't have public shows in public because of COVID, but I do have webinar shows, and we'll be having a webinar show in November, and we're looking at names. We're just looking at, it's a meditation on names. So I'll stop there. But please be original. If you're gonna insult us, don't produce the same old tumechoka.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sitawa. Please, and as a webinar, as the shows, as you're organizing, just keep me posted, and we'll help circulate, we'll help spread the word. So thank you for that. Bina, just, I guess we'll be interested to hear any current projects that people can plug into, and your last words really moving forward. What do we need to do moving forward? Anything, what are you up to that people can plug into? You need supporting?
Thank you so much. You know, I already want to like call all the panelists after this, you know, like literally, thank you so much. There's been so much to learn. And I think I just wanna say, and maybe echo also what Beatrice said in terms of political education. I think there's so much to do when it comes to political education in this country. And what I want to say is, you cannot engage what you do not understand. You know, you cannot engage what you do not understand. And I think Professor Mitchulla, you know, like speaks or rather raises very important points also when she says that we have seen also young women in our political rallies. And I think in recent times I have seen the same, but how are they being mobilized? Because many a times, even with the young women who are in my circles, it has been more of, Warembo na Kidero, Warembo na Uhuru, daughters of Raila and all that. It has been in support of, it has been in support of a male politician. Like, I don't know whether we had Warembo na Matakarua or Warembo na Ngilu, did we? I don't know if we did that. But I think what is even more important that she also raised is, what is their take home after they go to those rallies? What is their take home at the end of the day? For me, also what I want to say is the fact that if you cannot translate politics to what you eat, where you sleep, where you go, as in that's it. If you cannot translate it to those basic things, there's no way you're going to engage. And if you can just allow me to just share a very brief example that really struck me while we were doing our work to explain why we need a nuanced approach and different approach. And I thank even what Sitawa was saying, like whatever all of us are doing in our own space, it's legitimate, whichever way. You know, like we have a mutual goal. So whatever you're doing to meet that goal, it's okay. And we all can't do the same thing. And we all are not supposed to do the same thing. And we shouldn't, because we're unique in our own ways. I had this conversation and we were in a space where it was young women under 25. Because for us, it's more of creating safe spaces where young women can actually understand how politics translates to their day-to-day lives. So when I actually say we need to segment, it's that the challenges my mom goes through, like my mom has known the burden of paying school fees, of feeding us and all that. So this lady, we're talking about, how they're engaging, the understanding of politics, why they don't engage, like those teasers and all that. And she says, so Bina, for me, so my house rent is taken care of, my food bill is taken care of, my school fees is taken care of. How does corruption affect me? Why do you want me to engage? Put it back to me. So she can you imagine? Like, so she's like, so even that example that you gave me that unga moved from 90 shillings to 130, I didn't know because I don't buy stuff in this home. I do not. Another one says, oh, my big brother takes care of me. I live with my big brother, Bina. I don't pay rent. I don't buy food. I have allowance from my parents and from my elder siblings. How does corruption affect me?
Why should I care?
Why should I care? Why should I engage? And that is why I'm saying you cannot engage what you do not understand completely.
Wow.
My mom about water, she understands because the little she makes, she has to split it to buy water because water comes like in our home twice a week. So you tell her about a water issue, tomorrow she'll show up for a protest. If you tell her about water, you tell her about food, tomorrow she'll show up, because her salary determines when we're going to eat meat.
Wow. Wow.
You know, her chama money at the end of the month or at the end of the week is what perhaps determine whether we're going to eat fish that week or not. So this is someone who's telling you, me, I don't even feel the pain. Or, you know, like I have allowance from my siblings, have allowance from my parents, I don't pay rent. That example, what do you mean? I didn't even know Unga was 90 before election, and after election it was 130. Do you have a more relevant example, Bina?
Wow.
And that's what I'm talking about in terms of even creating safe spaces where you're able to break down what it means, you know, like what it means, how does politics affect your own life? So this girl, who was talking about perhaps these men who take care of her, and you know, you just can start throwing things like, oh, sponsor Ukufa. You know how Kenyans are on the show. When someone is bashed there, oh, sponsor Ukufa. She'll probably get her
Yeah, you're gonna summarize, because we also need to have Beatrice and Prof and Dr. Mitchulla speak before 8 o'clock.
Yeah, so I was just trying to say, so our issue was more of, okay, so for majority of you are here, like you're jobless. Can you connect joblessness to poor government in this country? Maybe that is why you're having people take care of you. So it's more of breaking down the issues, issue to their day-to-day life for them to understand. That's why I said we definitely need a nuanced approach to how we're approaching this issue. I like the comment someone made on the role of the media. I think also just to blame the media on how they frame women issues, because it has been more of, when we're talking about the 2/3 gender, or the cost of having more women, like, you know, even as Daisy says, we're just framed as a burden, you know, or it's going to cost 2 billion to have more women elected, or to have, you know, about to have more women nominated. The fact that even media frames it, you know, like frames it that way, then that's how we consume it. And then people actually look at women issues as a burden at the end of the day.
You know, Bina,
sorry?
I feel that we are, like, you're saying such important things. And I like that you've brought out that actual example of the person asking you, why should I care? Like, that is a whole, I feel like we need to have a whole separate session on something about that, on young women. And it relates to what Madam Beatrice was talking about, resonance. So I think for now, thank you so much for that. And just allow Beatrice to just give her last words and moving forward. So thank you so much, Bina. So many profound things said. In fact, you've opened a whole new story. So lest we stay another hour here, allow us to have Beatrice just say her last words.
Okay, thank you very much, Kimenchu. I think we have had a very good discussion that I didn't realize that time had moved. Before I give my last comment, I would want to comment on what Pasaris said about the name Women Rep. Women Rep shall remain because we actually want women to know that that position was specifically created for them. And we don't want to remove the word women or woman because we are not ashamed of being women. If you don't want to be a woman rep, go for the other positions. I'm just saying, I'm not talking about Pasaris, but I'm talking to those women.
Can you call her, please, like just give her Honorable Pasaris?
Honorable, I'm not talking to Honorable Pasaris.
Yeah.
I'm addressing those women who are saying that they don't want to be called by the name women reps. Because there's nothing to be, we are supposed to be proud of being women. And at the expense of being hated by many other people, especially members of parliament, I still stand with the fact that members of parliament or Senate are policymakers. They should not have money that they are managing. This conflict of interest is what has brought a lot of problems and corruption.
Allow me to cut that short because, wait, allow me to say something to that, and which is the concept of, that's a whole other ball game, because there's practice, there's what's on paper and there's what's on reality. And I think we all understand that, like, that's a whole other discussion. That's a whole other door that if we start on it, we will be here for another hour. So allow me to just redirect. I mean, what you're saying is important, absolutely valid. Allow me to redirect, if you can just talk about political mobilization, moving forward. What are you involved in? I know the World March of Women is having something coming up. How can the members here plug in.
Okay. I was just saying that it is a subject for another discussion.
Yes.
But
I apologize but we have 3 minutes to go. Yes.
Okay, that's what I'm doing. I'm saying that World March of Women is mobilizing around the issues of power analysis, whereby we will analyze, we want to help women to analyze issues of power so that they understand the underlying causes of some of the problems that they have, so that when they are doing, we are having elections or appointing leaders, we understand this. Then we are also ending our 5-year program, and we will be having activities around those, and I'm sure we'll be able to post on or to talk about them, about the activities that we are having in the next 4 months as we close the action. World March of Women has a motto that says, we shall march until all women are free. And when we talk about marching until all women are free, is addressing the issues that drag women or the behind, or the issues that make women lag behind, because we believe that women are the backbone of any nation. And World March of Women is a international grassroots movement that brings together people from all continents and in many countries of the world. We were supposed to have the activity here in Kenya, but because of the COVID, we cannot be able to have it, but we will still have the closing action. In Women Political Alliance, we are also creating platforms for women and encouraging women to create their own platforms to stop competing on men's platform, where women will be proud to be to have their own platforms. And a good example is when we had Embrace, and also in Wamama, we had 2 women groups although they were opposing each other, they were agreeing on one item, that 50-50. And when we have many platforms, then we have women occupying those spaces. And we are encouraging women to create platforms where they can occupy the space, and then they will make their own decisions. They don't have to wait for people to create platforms and land on those platforms. So I want to thank you and say that the discussion has been very healthy, and I hope that we will continue with this. Thank you very much, Kamenchu.
Thank you. You have been so amazing, your thoughts, and I like how the World March of Women's the motto, we shall march until all women are free, really aligns to your own history of in the world of working with people, prisoners against torture, release political prisoners. So I just want to continue, honor you, celebrate you for your work over the years, and to tell you to keep on going forward and call us to be part of what you're doing, and to also help popularize what you're doing. So everyone, all the participants, make sure that you plug into, you be in touch with Beatrice Kamau and what she's doing. So Asante Sana. I think we shall, all right, so let's have Professor Winnie Mitchulla, and then we'll give Mheshimiwa an opportunity to say her last words as the ending.
Thank you.
Yes, moving forward.
I just have 2 points.
Sure.
I just note that it's a very complex issue that we are discussing, and it is being cracked from various fronts. You can hear all the panelists who are practitioners, including Honorable Paseris, from all ends is being cracked. The second point is that we should leverage on women's efforts and synergies to advance women's case. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Professor. Just some of the last comments is that Paddy says it's a useful intervention. He's taken some things to inform policy dialogue. Bina is informing us about some of the programs that they are doing. Elizabeth Kangere says, excellent presentation, ladies. Asante Sana. Domi says, we fail to use media effectively to create a more woke society, especially not in the governance sector, and media does not have to be mainstream. I work for DTM, which is a nonprofit that deals with these issues. Jennifer says, it's been a good discussion. Women inclusion in decision-making has positively evolved. We look forward to full implementation of a 2/3 gender principle solidly in support. Dr. Juliet says, what's the feel of this discussion in relation to what is trending today about the CJ? I think we had mentioned that quite briefly. Grace Cheserex asks, please tackle the issue of financing women political aspirants. Hinders us when you have asked by electorate how much you have just when you show interest. That's a very good point, Grace. We actually talked about women in political finance, I think last month or last month, part one. If you go to the Conrad website, Facebook page, you'll be able to find the discussion. We really went into depth in it. So Honorable Pasais, maybe just a minute to give your final thoughts, as well as to tell us what you're involved in, what we can plug into. And I always say that that being a politician in this country is not an easy thing. So and also one of the things I would be continually saying in these particular forums for women in politics, that we need to support our women who are already in politics, for them to get, for their leadership to come out strongly and powerfully, if we are going to create the name and the concept that having women in politics is an important thing. So Karibu Mheshimiwa Pasais, could you say your last words and maybe what it is you're involved in that we can plug into?
Yeah, thank you very much. Beatrice, I have to mention, I agree with you. We shouldn't be having CDF, we shouldn't be having GAF, but I'm glad that we have GAF when they have CDF. This is a way to reach the people and to do projects to the people. The biggest corruption that we have in this country is probably not CDF and not GAF, it is the executive. It's a lot of money is lost through the executive, not through parliament. Women are not the burden, we need more women. I like the comment that we need to actually help finance women and finance women. You know, I'm so tired of us being called to rooms and being told, given training on how to be leaders and given t-shirts and notebooks to go out. If you really want to have more women in parliament, or more women in leadership, we need to give them projects to do. So my task in Nairobi is to make sure that in the next election, we have at least 50 or so women coming in as MCAs, elected, not nominated, and the same number in the constituencies. So what does that entail? It entails resources. Why? Because they're going to be competing with an MP who already has CDF, who's already doing projects. They're going to be competing with people who are already able to be felt on the ground. So we have to find issues relating to women, reproductive health rights, sanitary towels, safe spaces, education on how to do business. We have to find ways, sanitary towels, just providing sanitary towels. We have to find ways to empower the woman who wants to be a leader to go door to door from now to be able to help. And community health workers, there are leaders within them. You know, there's so many leaders that we can get to actually make them come into MCA positions, but then we need to groom them as well. So I think we have a task ahead of us to make sure that we are well prepared with the resources and the finances. I've heard about Jennifer Riria, they launched something to raise money for women, you know, a fund for women, but it died after the launch. What are we doing to make sure that we program women into what it takes to win an election, what it takes to get the votes? And, you know, we're competing with men who are well entrenched. I mean, if a woman wants to take out Tim Wanyonyi in Westlands, for instance, at the end of the day, he's going on his 4th term. You cannot unplug somebody, a position that has been held by men over the years. And of course, men have actually managed the narrative that women are a burden, a financial burden, women are not good leaders, etc. The woman rep's position really put women in an exhaustion. I have, as I said, 17 constituencies. I've been running around Pumwani, Kamkunji. They haven't even seen their MP. They haven't seen any of their MCAs, but they're bashing me. And yet I'm the only one who ran there to do something about it. So I feel we as women have to be strategic also, because most of the bloggers that hit women are men. We need to have our own set of bloggers to really make sure that they protect the women. We've got to play their game the way they play it against us. And today, the CJ, all the men are panicking in all our forums. They're panicking about being sent home. I'm so happy because when we tried to lobby them and to try and get them to pass the 2/3 gender rule, they were not willing to do it. So I really love the fact that the CJ has put everybody against the wall, and we should capitalize on that because they disrespected the fact that the 2/3 gender rule needed to be implemented. So if we have to go home, so be it. Let them understand that you can't disrespect women when it's constitutionally enshrined in our constitution that women should have not less than 2/3. There should not be any gender not having more than 2/3.
Wow. All right, Mheshimiwa, So thank you for that. And Dr. Juliet Kimemia says that Honorable Pasais has raised sound insights. We have to be strategic to play the game. So thank you for your thoughts. Thank you for just sharing those thoughts, Mheshimiwa Pasais. Yes, so for now, I think this has been one of a really, really good discussion. I want to acknowledge everyone, all the panelists for their thoughts and really just speaking very openly about this. I feel that we've had a lot to think about. So because time is up, unfortunately, but we shall be reconvening again next week. We shall be reconvening again next week, and we'll be able to move some of these insights forward. So for now, just to thank everyone that took part, both panelists as well as participants. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for making this so such a useful discussion. And yeah, we shall see you at the next week, and we'll be in touch earlier on. I have to say, by the way, that there had been a mix-up. Today we weren't supposed to hold this today, but when Cass got in touch with us yesterday, and I said, you know what, every day is an opportunity to fix Kenya. So just really also just to give heads up and props to our panelists for being able to come in at the last minute and just speak and just have such a powerful discussion. So everyone, thank you, and have a good evening, and we shall see you at the next discussion next week.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
All right, good night, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, bye, and have a
good night. Thanks.